is good to be with you on another episode of Service to Humanity, a sponsored program of the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, to update Nigerians on its activities as it carries out its mandate of coordinating humanitarian response while tackling the issues of poverty in our nation. My name is Habib Zakzok, your anchor. On this episode, we shall be looking at a 2-day capacity building workshop organized by the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development for state program managers and officers of the National Homegrown School Feeding Program. Please stay tuned.
It's key to helping young Nigerians acquire and develop.
The federal government of Nigeria remains committed to including and protecting persons with disabilities to guarantee that no one is left behind.
I see that we are going through challenging times, and I see this woman running all about the country trying to help our people, because this lady is doing a very good job for our country.
Thank you.
Thank you for all what you have been doing for us.
We start with the Management Diary, where we bring you news and current happenings in the ministry and her agencies. In the news, Minister flags off end skills training in Bauchi. Federal government, World Bank agreed to extend cash transfer program by 2 years. And Humanitarian Ministry gets new permanent secretary. Don't go away.
The Honorable Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Hajiya Sadiya Umar Faruk, on Thursday, 7th of April 2022, formally declared open the End Skills Training on life, vocational, and entrepreneurship skills in Bauchi State. The End Skills program is in line with the National Skills Qualification Framework (NSQF) for the development, classification, and recognition of skills, knowledge, and competencies acquired by individuals, irrespective of where and how the training or skill is acquired. Working with carefully selected consulting firms, the ministry aims to provide the End Skills training services for 6,475 unemployed youths across the Federation. According to the Honorable Minister, End Skills will help in bridging the gap in demand for standard and market-relevant skills. She then urged trainees to seize the opportunity and participate actively to learn and develop their competencies to become gainfully employed. While in Bauchi, the Honorable Minister also visited 2 of the 13 science, technology, engineering and mathematics STEM project centers in federal and state government secondary schools, as well as the Computer-Aided Learning Center in Bauchi. The centers are to enhance digital literacy, functional skills acquisition, school infrastructure, and teacher retraining, and contribute towards developing the human capital needed for a knowledge-driven economy. Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development said that the federal government has agreed with the World Bank to extend the Conditional Cash Transfer Program (CCT) by another 2 years. This was made known on Thursday in Lagos by Mr. Apera Yowa, the National Coordinator, National Social Safety Nets Coordinating Office (NASCO), Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, during the World Bank support mission on the implementation of National Social Safety Nets project and the engagement with stakeholders in Lagos State. Apera said that the CCT program was designed to benefit poor and vulnerable households with a monthly stipend of 5,000 naira. He added that the program was supposed to end on June 30th, 2023, but had to be extended to accommodate more indigent households. Yowa revealed the development was largely attributed to the successes of the program. He added that NASCO had a target of identifying 4 million households, and so far it has identified 11 million households made up of about 46 million individuals, which is by far the most comprehensive database of individuals in Nigeria. Permanent Secretary of the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development Bashir Noura Al-Qadi has been redeployed to the Federal Ministry of Works and Housing. This came after the approval of President Muhammadu Buhari for the deployment and redeployment of 7 permanent secretaries in the Federal Civil Service. The head of the Civil Service of the Federation, Dr. Folashade Yemi Esson, revealed this on Wednesday, 30th March 2022, in a statement signed by Mohammed Abdullahi Ahmed, Deputy Director, Communications, Office of the Head of Service. Nasir Sanugwarzo was redeployed from Ministry of Petroleum Resources, has taken over as the new Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development on Monday, 11th April 2022. While handing over, Al-Ghali urged management and staff of the Humanitarian Ministry to accord the new Permanent Secretary the same cooperation and support they accorded him while he served in that capacity.
You are still watching Service to Humanity. The Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development has continued in its efforts to making the National Homegrown School Feeding Program meet the desired goal for which it was created. To this end, a 2-day capacity building workshop for state program managers and officers under the school feeding program was organized in Abuja. Let's take details of the event in our next story. Keep watching.
The Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development organized a capacity building workshop for program managers and program officers of the National Homegrown School Feeding Program.
Today, we are going to be looking at supply chain.
The 2-day event, which took place on the 7th and 8th of April 2022 at the Nigerian Army Resource Center in Abuja, had in attendance National Coordinator of the National Social Investment Program, NSIP, Engineer Umar Bindir, Team Lead of the NHGSFP, Aishatu Dugil, Special Advisor to the President on Monitoring and Evaluation, Fatia Askederi, Program Managers and Program Officers of various states of the Federation under the NHGSFP. In his address, National Coordinator of the National Social Investment Program, NSIP, Engineer Umar Bindir, reminded participants of the relevance of the capacity workshop to their jobs as program managers and officers.
As you all know, this training or all trainings to build your capacity, to improve your understanding of programs and projects is absolutely imperative to the success of any program that you can do. And therefore, the National Homegrown School Feeding Program, as a strategic program of the National Social Investment Program, is not that different. Sorry to bore you, but I am sure by now you have recognized the stake you hold in the states, particularly on this program. But you also have a huge stake when it comes to the general cycle of the National Social Investment Program. There are program managers that are bending backwards to ensure that they even fight with the senior officials of government to make sure that they do well. There are others that will land, independent monitor will sit like this, program manager will sit like this in front of focal person, and they share the school feeding and they don't feed the children. That bad story too we have. It's evil, it's satanic, but we do hear that too. There are some of the issues are our problems, but that is government for you. We try everything to make sure that once you start feeding, it's feeding until you close. But that's not how government works, because feeding means money, and this feeding money you get is recurrent. Recurrent is released monthly. So with the release, we pay you, and then we wait. If the account is not recharged, we cannot pay. And then you start jumping up and down, Abuja people, blah, 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 blah. But all that, we have learned how to ensure that we panel beat this. You too, you must have learned by now how to also try to play your role to make it very, very smooth.
The event started with statement of the objectives of the workshop.
So for us, we wanted to use this opportunity to actually get back on the same page with the implementers. That's the state government representatives who are the program managers, as well as the federal government, to get back to the project implementation manual, which is guiding or is expected to guide this program. I believe we're all conversant with the project implementation manual.
Various topics were treated at the workshop. They include project management, supply chain management, state-led monitoring and evaluation for NHGSFP, beneficiary management, basics of project management, designing nutritious and cost-friendly menus, tools, and NHGSFP nutrition guidelines, data management basics for the NHGSFP, reporting tool, vendor management and practice data management tool. Special Advisor to the President on Monitoring and Evaluation, Fatia Askederi, who was one of the facilitators at the workshop, took participants on supply chain management.
You need to understand that the simplest fact is that a program cannot succeed except the logistic and supply chain delivers reliable, continuous supply of food to children when and where it is needed. There are some key factors here. We are talking about success of a program. So what is this program? It's about school feeding. If you are not delivering food to the children, school feeding is not taking place. So we need a robust supply chain that can ensure that there's continuous supply of these quality foods to the children when and where it is needed. By definition, supply chain management encompasses the planning and management of all activities that is involved in sourcing, that's from procurement to storage to inventory management and all other logistics systems that make sure that goods get to the desired location.
Some of the participants revealed efforts they have made on the supply chain in their states with regards to the homegrown school feeding program.
The aggregators, they supply, they deliver to the cooks at the designated centers of which we monitor. So we allow the cooks to procure the other food items like rice, beans, yam, plantain, etc. So the advantage of using the aggregators for the protein items is that we are able to get the quality and quantity, because the aggregators delivers to the cooks as per the number of pupils allocated assigned to them per school.
That's why we did aggregation was the fact that we were looking for quality of the protein, because larger percentage of the nutritional value that we wanted to pass to the pupils lie in those proteins, fish, meat, and egg. We discovered that the first payment we had, we wanted to make it a free market thing. Our feedback was that people didn't buy meat. In fact, they used the meat, leftover meat in their own households. So we discovered that very critical aspect of the meal needed to be protected. That's why we brought in aggregators.
Ifeanyi Ona speaks on what is expected of participants after the workshop.
Of course, I am sure you were with us at the introductory speech. It's about the reporting tools. Some materials and equipment have been given to the participants. We're expected to go back to our respective states to deploy these materials and equipment into action and use it to do an on-the-spot reporting of what is happening at the state level. That will help the federal ministry, the body, in getting all the reports, coordinating them, and then using them for decision-making and further planning.
Gidado Garba Abubakar, team lead of NHG SFP for Bauchi State, also speaks on the capacity building workshop.
In an interactive session of this nature where you brainstorm, rub minds, a lot of things will come up that will aid in the successful implementation of the project. In both, in almost all the 774 local governments nationwide. So you see the impact is has a multiplier effect on the program. National Homegrown School Feeding Program is a dynamic program. It has to change with the environment, with the key players, with the beneficiaries, and as well as the state of the economy too. Of course, you are right. In this kind of workshop, definitely new ideas are going to come up. Essentially, digital ideas that goes with the technology and all other things that are relevant to the whole program implementation.
Across the 6 geopolitical zones.
They should use this money for what it is meant for, obviously to take care of their family.
In 36 states and the FCT. Over 6.4 million of Nigerians poorest of the poor in about 1.3 million households receive conditional cash transfers of 5,000 naira monthly under the Household Upliftment Program of the federal government. Their joy knows no bound.
And the government very well because they did well for us.
It helped me to do any other thing, my family.
Reducing absolute poverty, promoting shared prosperity through the Conditional Cash Transfer Initiative. The Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development in service to humanity.
You are still watching Service to Humanity, bringing you activities from the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development as it carries out its mandates. Still on the National Homegrown School Feeding Program, many states have adopted models to improve the efficiency of the program. In Kaduna State, the National Homegrown School Feeding Program has created a monitoring group called Kaduna Mothers for Accountability, also known as KM4A. The group is made up of mothers of pupils under the school feeding program to monitor activities of vendors of the program. Stay tuned for our interaction with a member of the group.
In a bid to achieve the goal of the Homegrown School Feeding Program in Kaduna State government, through the State Program Office, has decided to involve parents, in this case, mothers of pupils fed under the program, to monitor cooks of the program and the food they serve the pupils. Ajia Aisha Abdullahi Ango is a member of this group of mothers called Kaduna Mothers for Accountability, also known as KM4A. She is one of those mothers assigned to Research Nursery and Primary School, Kawo, Kaduna, for cooks monitoring. We interacted with Hajia Aisha and she tells us about this group, which was created about a year ago, and its functions. She begins by telling us the mandate of the group.
An kirkiro shi ne saboda mu iyayen yara mu rika zuwa makaranta.
It was created to allow us parents of those pupils to monitor the quantity and quality of the food our children are served in school. Also, to monitor how the food is prepared.
Sannan kuma suna dafa shi da kyau a wurin dafawan suna yin shi yadda ya kamata yadda aka ba su.
She shares with us some of the issues KM4A had with the cooks and the strategy the group used to address them in order to achieve positive results.
Farko kasan da aka dauke mu muka ce musu abincin da ake ba mu yaran mu baya kai.
Initially, we observed the food being served to the pupils was too little, and the vendors would go away with the remaining. So, we cautioned them, saying they must give the pupils enough food, and if after serving primaries 1 to 3, there is left over, it should be served to the remaining classes. The food is meant for the pupils, so they are the primary reason for the program. Also, the vendors weren't putting enough oil, so we told them we would not take that. These pupils are our children, and the vendors are also parents, whom we are sure would not like that done to their children. The third problem was the issue of eggs. Sometimes a vendor would come with excuses that she was not given enough eggs for the pupils, or foodstuffs are now expensive. Some would even say some eggs broke during delivery or cooking. Instead of the vendor coming with 70 eggs, you may see them with 45 or 50 eggs. In that case, we tell the vendors it is on her because she is supposed to complain that she was not given enough money for eggs, or the eggs are broken. So they have all taken correction.
Ajia Aisha expressed satisfaction with the quality and quantity of food served the pupils of the school she monitors.
Gaskiya abincinmu suna samu, gaskiya kuma ba a ba su abinci kaɗan. Dan sai da muka yi complaint.
Sincerely speaking, the food is of good quality and a quantity enough to satisfy the pupils. Initially, they served each pupil just 1 serving spoon, so we had to caution them to increase the quantity. They have to serve them the quantity that would satisfy their own children. A child's feeding pattern differs from that of an adult. It is different during breakfast. It's also different for brunch. Dinner is also different. You cannot compare the quantity of brunch to lunch. They consume more for lunch.
Da safe cin abincin shi daban, da hantsi cin abincin shi daban, da rana cin abincin shi daban. Haka in zaka ba shi da yamma cin abincin shi daban, na dare ma daban. To, kaga na cin abincin hantsi definitely ba zai kai na rana ba. Dan na rana an fi ci da yawa.
She also confirms the evidence of physical health improvement in the pupils and increase in attendance and enrollment.
Ai ka san idan yaro ya koshi za ka shi a jikin shi. To lafiya lau dan ko za ka ba ma yaro ma yanzu ma ba su ma kuɗin break.
When a child eats well, you would notice it in the child's body. Even when some parents give their children money for break, they do not collect it. They tell their parents there is food for them in school. That tells you they get satisfied with the food. Otherwise, they would collect the money from their parents. When a child is filled up, you usually get what you want from that child. But when a child goes to school without having breakfast from home and gets very little food in school, you don't expect to get the best from the child. The child will not even stay in school. But our children here don't leave school until after closing time.
Wasu suka ci abincinsu sun ci abincinsu kuma a tsanake za su zauna za a raba musu za su ci abincinsu wanda ya ƙoshi ya ajiye sauran ba ba su kaɗan abinci mai yawa ake ba su yadda zai isa daidai cikinsu.
Ajia Aisha rounded up the session with a call to the government.
Kiran da nake yi gaskiya daga gwamnati shine.
My plea to the government is that they should reconsider the instruction that only pupils of primary 1 to 3 should be fed in schools. It should be extended to the nursery classes since they are even younger. Left for me, the entire pupils of the school should be fed.
And it is on that note we end this episode of Service to Humanity. Until I come your way again next week, stay safe. Don't forget to send in questions and suggestions to any of our social media platforms or drop a message on the ministry's page on Facebook or Twitter. See you next week.